Okay, good afternoon, Form 5s. So this week, week 8, we are going to have a little look at paying for goods and services and also credit. Now, last week, if you remember, we had a little look at all the different forms of income that people can have, and social welfare and contributory payments and non-contributory payments, and there was a lot in that. We also looked at expenditure and we looked at budgeting. So there were the three main elements from last week, and this week we're going to move on to payment and credit, and then next week we will move on to savings, and we will move on to insurance, and that will finish the finance management chapter. Okay, so let's get a little start. So this week we're just looking at slides 27 to 42. So slide 27, so we're looking at the different options for paying for goods and services. So you need to know the advantages and the disadvantages of each of these. So I'm not going to go through all of them. So first of all, we have cash. And on this page, we also have checks. Now, what do you need to know about each of them? Well, you need to know some advantages and some disadvantages. So obviously with cash, it's quick, it's convenient, there's less chance of overspending because you have what you have in your purse. However, it's not suitable for paying for large items. So if you wanted to buy a car or a house, you wouldn't be using necessarily cash to do that. There's a risk of losing cash. It can be bulky. Checks, convenient and safe. Okay, however, a charge is incurred for every check that you use. Okay, and it takes a few days to clear a check. Right, and it depends if it's in the same bank or going to a different bank. Debit cards, then just to watch, and you need to know the difference between your debit and your credit cards. Okay, so here we have debit cards. So, debit cards. So they deduct money directly from your current account to pay for a purchase. They can only be used if you have the sufficient funds in your account. Okay, so that's where it changes and it's different from a credit card. Okay, you can only use a debit card if the money is in your account. All right, and you can use contactless with this. There's less chance of overspending. It's useful for paying bills online and online shopping. Okay, now we're going to move on to direct debits and standing orders. Now the main difference here, you probably remember this from Junior Cert Business Studies. A standing order is a fixed sum of money. It's the same amount every week or every month, or every fortnight, depending on how often it comes out, but it's the same amount. It's a fixed sum. Okay, and then a direct debit, the sum is variable. So a phone bill, okay, the sum is variable. Now let's move on to our credit cards. So it allows you to pay for purchases on credit. Okay, so if you do not have the cash for something straight away, then you can pay using your credit card, okay? But, however, if the credit card bill is not paid on time, so at that certain date of every month, you will get your bill, and if you have not paid for your bill on time, high rates of interest may be charged. So just be careful, you're paying for that facility. Now, 24-hour phone banking is another way of paying, and we also have online banking. Okay, so online banking, and you probably do online banking yourselves, okay? So we have 24-hour phone banking, okay? That's 365 days a year. It's very accessible worldwide, and we have online banking, and that can be accessed anywhere in the world as well, okay? Transferring money and paying for bills. Now we have a credit transfer or a credit gyro. It's a paper slip addressed to a bank instructing it to debit a specific sum of money from the consumer's account to the named account on the gyro. They are commonly found in the form of tear-off strips at the bottom of a regular bill. So you'll see it maybe at the bottom of your phone bill or on post bill or your credit card bill. And a bill pay is a service operated by An Post. that enables consumers to pay for a variety of their bills, so their telephone, their gas, their cable, their electricity, ESB bill, all with An Post, free of charge. It's very, very convenient. Okay. Now, so there are options for paying for goods and services. Now we're going to move on to forms of credit. And as I keep saying, please read through this in your book to reinforce what we have done. Now, we're looking here now at forms of credit. So buying now, paying later. Okay, so the first part there we looked at was paying for goods and services. Now, and the different ways we can do that, now we're looking at forms of credit. So the main things we're going to look at here are store cards, credit cards, a bank overdraft, a term loan, a charge card, okay, and we'll also look at hire purchase. Okay, so these you need to be familiar with. So store cards. So these allow consumers to purchase goods when they do not have sufficient funds and repay at a later date. So it's a little bit like a credit card, okay, but only in the store associated with the card. So it's assigned to a particular store, okay? Now, the next one is your credit card. So you purchase goods when you do not have sufficient funds and repay at a later date. Okay. You have a credit limit. So you cannot just spend. There is a limit on your card, and this is the maximum amount that you can borrow on a single card. Okay. So if you have a good credit rating, it can be extended. Interest then, the interest rates are similar to those charged for store cards, but they can sometimes be a little lower, but you have to watch your interest. Okay, and if you don't pay for something on time, high interest can be charged. Okay, now an overdraft. This is an agreed sum of money that a consumer can withdraw from their current account in the bank when they have no money in their account. So, for example, if I have, let's say I have €2,000 in my current account and I apply for an overdraft of €2,000, that means I'm able to spend €4,000. But as soon as I dip into the bank overdraft, I'm paying interest. So I have to be very, very careful. Okay? If I don't dip in and use the facility of the overdraft, then no interest is charged. But if I do use it, then interest is charged, and it can be quite high. Okay? Now, a loan. So you may take out a loan to buy a car, you may take out a loan to do up or furnish your house, you may take out a loan to, to buy a piece of machinery, right, it just depends. So a loan is paid out in a lump sum to consumers and repaid in regular payments over a set period of time. So it could be a 5-year loan, it could be a 3-year loan, it could be a 1-year loan, it could be a 10-year loan. It just depends. Okay, so the duration of the loan will vary. And when the loan is granted, the agreed amount is transferred into the consumer's account. Okay, and then interest rates can be variable. That means they fluctuate, they change, or they can be fixed. So that means they remain the same for the entire duration. So you know how much you're going to be charged every month exactly. Now, and then we move on to charge cards and hire purchase. So charge cards, for example, American Express. So a charge card works in a similar manner to a credit card, except consumers must pay their full balance upon receipt of their monthly bill. You do not have a credit limit. So that is very important to note. Okay, no interest is charged if the balance is paid in full and no late fee is applied. Okay, if the balance is not paid in full, a late fee is applied. And the last one, hire purchase. So hire purchase is where it's a combination of hiring and buying. But you are not the owner of the goods until the last installment is paid. So, for example, I want to buy maybe a tractor lawnmower. So I might enter into a hire purchase agreement. Okay, and some companies will do this for you. And what that means is I'm able to use the lawnmower, I'm able to do everything, bring it home with me on the day, but I don't actually own that lawnmower until the last installment is paid. Okay? So the last installment to be paid will be, it could be 2 years, it could be 3, it could be 4, or whatever. Okay, so have a little look at the conditions down here. A description of the goods. Okay, so this is very important. I have this on a separate slide as well. The cash price, the hire purchase price, the number of installments, the amount of each installment, and the date that each installment has to be paid. The names and the signatures and the addresses of all the parties. Then you have what's called a 10-day cooling off period. And that means you have 10 days with which you can opt out of the agreement at the beginning and nothing will happen. But if you don't pay up and you don't keep up with your installments and you don't keep up with all your amounts of payments, then it could be repossessed or taken off you. Okay, so all of that is set out in the conditions under the Hire Purchase Act 1946 and 1960. So I have it here for you just in one slide. The Hire Purchase Act 1946 and 1960, very NB, that means very important. And there are the 10 things that are stipulated in that act, and you need to know them. Okay? Now, factors to consider when choosing credit. Okay? Is it an essential purchase? Because credit is expensive because you're paying interest for the facility or the novelty of having credit. The interest rate. Okay? Hidden fees and penalties if I miss a repayment. Very important. Okay, so that's an important slide. Very important. And then last of all, we're just going to have a little look at the advantages and disadvantages and the Consumer Credit Act. So the advantages of credit, okay, so it's useful to meet unexpected emergencies, it encourages consumers to spend money, it benefits the economy, it's useful for paying for large items which are expensive. However, it can encourage impulse buying and living beyond our means. Interest rates can be high and goods can be repossessed and taken off you, including your house, if you're not keeping up with your mortgage repayments. And then the Consumer Credit Act 1995 is the second important act. So we had the Hire Purchase Act 1946 and 1960 and the Consumer Credit Act 1995. And this is very important and you need to learn these two slides in particular. This regulates various aspects of credit, including hire purchase, mortgages, loans, and credit cards. It monitors credit advertising. It ensures that the advertisement contains information such as the annual percentage rate of interest and restrictions on the availability of credit. It imposes that credit agreements must be in writing. Okay, these written pieces of information must include the cash price, the hire purchase price, the names, the addresses, the signatories. These are all very important, the number of installments. And it stipulates that lenders who provide credit must not visit borrowers in their workplace seeking payment. So that's a very, very important slide as well. So all of that work for this week is important. Okay, so try and learn it as you go, and next week then we'll move on to savings. Okay, thank you. Bye.